All right, so here we are, the Betsy Babes talk show podcast slash gonna be a talk show soon, making our way there. All right, so this is our team.
Watch out, YouTube.
What's that? So what's up, YouTube?
I said, watch out, YouTube. The babes are entering the building.
Yeah.
That's right. All right,
Here.
Our podcast where we talk about what's going on in social media and how it crosses over into pop culture, and this is either going to affect your daily life or your business life. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Netflix just launched a documentary called The Social Dilemma, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. It talks about how social media has kind of reprogrammed our brains. And that's not always a great thing. So before we get too far into our topic, I want to make sure everybody understands who we've got in the room. So I'm going to go around and let's do some quick intros. So Tasha, why don't you kick us off?
Cool. I am Tasha Gorell, based out of Houston, Texas, if someone thinks there's another Houston somewhere. And I am the account manager for Betsy Bash and also write copy and do our design and are part of all of the creative, amazing things that the whole team gets to come up with. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. All right. How about Tamara?
Hey, I'm Tamara. I am based off Denver now. I am the social media data analyst here at Betsy Bash.
Awesome. And Jonathan?
I'm Jonathan Smith, representing Peoria, Illinois. We're smack dab in the middle of Illinois. If you haven't heard of us, it's not your fault. I am the ads manager coming up with some of the strategies that we're implementing for our clients here at Betsy Bash.
Awesome. And 3?
Hi, I am Theresa, or also known as 3, and I am the community manager at Betsy Bash, and I also do copywriting and editing. And yeah.
Yeah, and you're down in Houston, Texas with Tasha.
Oh, yes. I am in Houston, Texas with Tasha.
Awesome. And to round it out, I'm Lauren Ramsey. I started Betsy Bash about 10 years ago as a social media agency and haven't looked back since. All right, so let's talk about this documentary. All right, so it got 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Not a great review, but pretty up there. And it got about 4.6 stars.
Yeah, I got degrees with 86.
Say that again, Jonathan?
I got a degree with 86%, so I think it was a great documentary.
When was 86 not good? That's a B+. Come on.
Yeah,
That's pretty good for like this strange documentary thing that Netflix has decided to create. I think that's pretty good.
Right. So the documentary really goes into it. You know, it talks with the founders of Pinterest and a couple other platforms. I think I can't remember everybody that's in there, and people that have been high up at Facebook and Twitter and things like that. So a lot of the social media platforms are represented. I don't think anybody's underrepresented. And they talk about the way that the algorithm has been coded to deliver content to the users on each of these platforms, and that as time goes, it learns your behaviors and interests more and more and starts delivering you smarter content, which can be good, but it can also be a little bit on the negative side if they're also manipulating your brain to make you want that content, right? But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and the way I kind of want to kick off this conversation, is that social media is also the very first platform where we get to interact with these advertisers. And it's not just a one-way street anymore with TV or billboards. Now we can interact, but they're using that against us. So let's talk about this. So what do we think more about just the platforms itself and how people are interacting with them?
In a lot of ways, it is good. We've talked about before, and we help small businesses grow. And it's a way for smaller businesses to connect with users that are near them in a way that they wouldn't necessarily be able to afford to do with like a TV ad or a billboard, and connect with more people who'd be interested. Mm-hmm. And in that way, it's very positive. But it does like have its negative connotations when big industries can be really targeted to certain people, and also the addictive aspects of all the platforms.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the larger companies that you referenced, three, they can use their unethical practices to target people specifically. But I think when I think of big companies, I'm thinking like Amazon, Walmart. But some of the big companies that we have to worry about are like ones that we haven't even heard of. Like who is the Analytical Pacifica or something? Like who is that? But yeah, it's still with those negative connotations in hand, the opportunity for small businesses, like you said, to use these platforms at least on a free basis initially, really opened up the doors to reach their audience. I mean, before wasn't it like mostly an email, or you'd mail a newsletter, which direct mail, then the prices skyrocketed. So something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, businesses.
And one can also argue that now we have customized ads that are specifically targeting us. So it can be beneficial for us if we're looking for a specific product or anything that's meant for us. So in the end, it could be beneficial.
We have an entire episode that's dedicated to how do we really feel about targeted ads? Because aren't they really helpful if you're looking for a journal and then all of a sudden you get 17 different journals that are available to you on Etsy? I'm not going to lie, there is such a convenience there, but touching back on the small business part, a huge hindrance for small businesses to get their foot off the ground is getting people through the door. And the price point of that, right? Like we mentioned TV. I'm watching Better Call Saul right now. And he's literally trying to sell TV time because that was the only way that you could really reach people in 2006. And the cheapest package that he's offering is $900. You know how much $900 can get you on Facebook? It's crazy the amount of people and traffic that you can get for these relatively small budgets that can literally save small businesses and allow them to thrive, especially in today's market. You can't go knocking on people's doors and being like, hey, I just opened a new candle shop. Don't you want to come check it out? That doesn't, you'd be like, get away from me, 6 feet and a mask, and please stay away, It has been such an incredible tool. It really has. With everything that we're about to say that's probably not going to be so incredible. There is such incredible aspects of it.
There is the creepy factor where you're on the phone with somebody and you start talking about wanting a couch, and then you go on Facebook and suddenly there's couches from Amazon and from Wayfair and from everywhere, and it's I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this.
But on the flip side of that,
I'm going to buy this couch.
Yeah, right. You're probably going to find the couch you want. And on the flip side of that, I've been served ads that of products I could not have found anywhere else except for through that ad. And they found me by listening to me on my phone. But it was this really bizarre dog gate that I was looking for my family. And we had a really wide door. And so all of the dog gates at PetSmart were too narrow. And my grandmother and I were talking back and forth, and I had my phone in my hand. And then sure enough, later that night, I got the ad for the perfect dog gate. They bought it. It worked. It was phenomenal. I don't know how I else would have found that dog gate otherwise.
Yeah. The convenience factor.
Yeah, I think the problem comes in with the addiction piece, right? I think, as a social media professional, as an adult that's grown up with social media, I think just at the age where I had more control over it than the younger generations, right? I got into social media when I was in my 20s, not when I was 10, right? So I think I've grown up with a little bit of a different mindset towards social media. And I think as things have come out about how these apps do control your brain, right, and they give you these hits of dopamine every time you get a like or you get a follow, every time you pull down the page, it refreshes and gives you new content. So you just feel like it's this endless space of content. I think I've been able to also know that I don't have to follow those patterns, right? I can break out of that as an adult. I think
it's so interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, such an interesting part of the documentary was, like, within the first 5 minutes when everyone was introducing themselves and also talking about what function they engineered. Like, someone was like, I came up with the Facebook like button. I came up with the ability to tag people. I came up with scrolling down and something would refresh. Like, I'm like, these are things that, like, I got on Facebook when I was 14. Like, I don't even remember times before I was 14, you know? So, like, all of these things that are, like, a basic part of my, like, psychology, people created those with me in mind, which is, like, such a strange way to look at social media. When you can, like, take a step back and look at social media like a house, right? Like, someone built this door. Someone built these walls. Like, someone built that button, and they did it for your convenience, but
also to sell
what does
stuff
that
to you.
Also to sell stuff to you. Yeah.
The longer that you keep scrolling,
What,
the
T?
more the things sell.
They build this with the intention to make you come back. I know at some point they compared it to like the casino, like slot machines, and that feeling it gives you of like not knowing what's going to happen. It's kind of creepy, honestly.
So
That's a good thing. Like these tactics aren't necessarily new, right? Like people have been trying to capture attention forever, but it's just like, it is new because it's technology, you know?
Well, and it's in your hands.
Yeah.
It is portable. It goes with you everywhere. You're in a waiting room, you pull out your phone. You're waiting in line to pay for your groceries, you pull out your phone. Like, in our blog post, one of the things that I read in one of the research articles said that, like, 30% of people have even pulled out their phone during sex. Like 70% of people will pull out their phone any given moment that they're not actually doing something else. And it's so convenient and, like, mesmerizing, and you don't have to think. Like, you can just, I don't want to think about my life, so I'm just going to think about everybody else's life and wish I had theirs. Oh, and I need to buy that thing on Amazon or that thing on Wayfair.
I will say, though, even though I feel like I do control my apps and they don't control me, I will say that it's been a journey, right? And I had to get myself to here. And at one point in my life, I do remember, I don't know if it was like maybe 7 years ago, maybe even longer, maybe 8, 9 years ago, I would find myself like having my phone in my hand. So let's do this. And I would just be doing this. Like, I wouldn't be looking at it. I would be like talking to someone, but I would be scrolling.
Oh my God. So another little antidote. Over the weekend, in my other job as an event manager, I worked a party, and it was for a 13-year-old birthday party. And there was 20 13-year-olds and girls. 13-year-old girls. 20 13-year-old girls. And they're very well off because they hired a catering company for their 13-year-old's birthday party. But all of the girls the entire time were on their phones. They were taking photos, and they were watching the videos on TikTok. They were making videos on TikTok, and they were taking pictures of each other, and they were in a group just staring at their phones. They were in a circle outside staring at their phones. I will say the parents picked up the phones for their dinner, but then as soon as dinner was over, they went right back to it, and it was disturbing to see 20 children standing around just looking at their phones at a party. And
I have 2 questions. First, can we go around the room? Tell me the first age you were when you got like a social media platform. Like me and Tasha already said ours. So T?
13, I joined MySpace.
Okay. Jonathan?
I'm thinking that's the same for me. 13 for MySpace.
Okay. 3?
Yeah, I was probably about 14 for MySpace.
And then,
but
go ahead.
I was just going to add that I didn't get a smartphone until I was 21.
Okay. And
so
then,
I had platform access, but it was only like logging in on the computer kind of thing.
Okay. And then Tasha, were you going to change your answer?
I had MySpace before I had Facebook. So I was on MySpace like in 6th grade. Like I remember like going to like bar and bat mitzvahs and like checking my MySpace to see if someone had changed where I was on their like top 5 or top 7 friends, you know?
Top 8.
So I must have been
Top
like
8,
11. I must have been like 8, sorry. But then they changed it anyways. So I must have been like 11 or 11, I think, was what I got on MySpace for the first time, which is crazy.
So MySpace for me, I think I was 19 or 20. And then, but AOL chat rooms.
Oh,
Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
I was like,
ASL.
Which is still my Facebook email, AOL chat rooms. Love those things.
actually, I think I might have been 11. Okay, so, but I think chat rooms were so like here and then gone, right? Like I don't think chat rooms have affected us long term like MySpace and Facebook have. So, okay, then my second question, now that we've talked about that, can I remember my second question? We were talking about kids.
13-year-old girl TikTok birthday party.
Right. So thank you. So 3. So in the social dilemma, right, it talks about how it's affecting the younger generations, and they have this really kind of dumb, like PSA-esque style.
Oh, yeah.
After school special storyline that's running. And part of the thing that they do is they put their phones in this box that has a timer and a lock, and they're supposed to not be able to open it until the end of dinner. And this dramatic 13-year-old girl like breaks the box open and takes her phone out, and like dinner's done. So did that feel like what was happening at the party? Like they were just dying to be on their phones?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they did like interact during dinner. So I heard lots of weird, snippy things that they were saying about each other and to each other in whispers, but, 13-year-old girls. That was pretty normal.
Yeah.
But as soon as dinner was over, like, they went all, like, rushed over and, like, collected their phones, and then they were right back at it.
I think it's worth pointing out in that PSA, which I'm going to go on record and say I actually enjoyed the after-school special segment of the documentary. Unpopular opinion, apparently.
It is an unpopular opinion because I really hated that.
But the girl, the young girl, was smart enough to put on safety goggles at least before she smashed the case.
Where did he find those?
Safety first.
In the kitchen?
They just
Never
have safety
done that in
goggles
real
lying
life.
around because you never know.
Well, you know what? I don't think it was too dramatic. I think I was that 13-year-old girl because I remember my mom used to make me leave the phone at night charging by her so I wouldn't be on it at night. Like, and I'd sneak in and like take it from her, and like I just couldn't be without it.
Mm-hmm.
I was addicted.
I
wasn't on social.
Sister, and I feel like I saw my little sister do those types of behaviors. But I think I was just a little bit old enough,
Yeah, I resisted getting a smartphone. Like, I didn't want one. When I was 21, I finally got an iPhone because my old flip phone broke, and I was being, like, peer pressured by, like, my boyfriend at the time. But I didn't want one. Like, I saw how addicted people were, and I was like, I don't want to be like that. And I was, like, so above it, and now I'm, like, addicted. I have to delete all my apps and, like, monitor my own self. I knew I was going to be like that. But I'm glad that I didn't have it as a teenager, because the most I was addicted to as a teenager was talking on the phone with my friends.
Wow.
And, like, that's a novel idea now.
I know.
I was going to say that, like, I feel like young people, teenagers, are always going to want to be able to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Like, you think of, like, the 50s, and there's, like, the girls on the phone in their bedrooms forever, right? And then, like, same in, like, up and through when we all got our own phones, and I was on my phone all the time. So now it's, like, people are on their smartphones and using social to connect to people. And I think what the social dilemma's over-dramatization of the after-school special does really well is get into the psychology of what it does, especially for young girls, and the effect that it has on young people. And there was this crazy chart that it showed about, like, suicide rates in young people climbing and bullying in young people climbing, and, like, I'm talking, like, was nothing up until 2010, and then, like, spiked way up, right?
Like,
so
140% increase, 150% increase.
Wow.
Of suicide rates
yeah.
among girls between the ages of 10 and, like, 13, and then ages, like, 14 to 17 were, like, 100% increase.
And I think that's what makes social media as a form of advertising so different than other forms? Because sure, like other forms of advertising have also always been able to appeal to like whoever's watching the TV or whoever picks up the 17 magazine. But now social is such an integral part to how young people communicate. So they're inundated with this like very, like, I don't know, someone help me try to say what I'm saying. But basically I'm just saying like this extension of communication that we've been doing as young people since the beginning of the 20th century has taken on a new form. Yeah. And that new form is the negative effect. It's the seeing pictures of other people. It's the like button. It's like, it's the constantly comparing yourself to Jenna, who just posted a picture in a bikini and she's 12 and she has bigger boobs than I do. And now I feel horrible about myself, you know?
Right.
Jenna's the worst.
Jenna really is the worst.
I hate Jenna.
But it goes back to it being so convenient and so handheld, and it's the first time smartphones, it's like the first time in history where we carry the advertisement with us everywhere, and we're so mentally motivated to be on the platforms, and especially as young girls are wanting to communicate and wanting to compare themselves and wanting to see what their friends are doing and wanting to post their own pictures and make sure their life looks perfect because her life looks perfect. Even though we all know that like the other people's lives aren't that perfect, and that's just a really good photo and that's just good lighting and it doesn't mean anything. But when you're 14, do you really know that? Like when you're 13, do you really know that?
Well, they talk about it in the documentary that we were not evolved to take this much input into our brains yet. Like as a society, as a culture, we're not ready for this kind of adaptation. That's why I think there was that increased spike around 2010 where it just hit us, where everything was accessible all at once. So our brains got overloaded and we couldn't adapt to it quick enough. I think it's interesting when Lauren, you brought up like how old were you when you started getting social, and you're saying at about 20s it took off. For us it was like teens, but now even my younger sister probably 10 or 11, and it almost likens itself to alcohol age restrictions or any kind of vice. Like you're not allowed to gamble until you're 21. You can't drink till you're 21 because at that point typically your body's, your mind, or your liver, I'm going to say liver because I don't think my mind is completely developed yet, but it allows you to adapt to those kinds of things. So this intake of dopamine and the addiction that it causes, you introduce that at a young age, it becomes more ingrained in who they are as a person. So maybe that's the way to move forward.
There's that great quote in The Social Dilemma where it's like there are two industries that call their the people users.
Customers users.
Customers users. Drugs and social media. And I was like, pause. I was like, Gabe, boyfriend, do you see this? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, this is dangerous. I've decided in this quote, this is dangerous.
But it's also technology.
I call everybody users.
Yeah. But yeah, it does. It makes this like ominous feeling like, oh my gosh, we've been addicted to social media.
Yeah, it does a good job at making it feel very ominous.
Yeah, they do. So I think, one thing that we talked about earlier was that social media is a two-way street, right? And it's really the first platform where it's been the advertisers and the users can speak back and forth, right? But who can control what's being put out, right? And I think that's worth talking about a little bit. And I know 3 has some thoughts on that, so I'll kick that over to you first.
I think that it's the responsibility of the platforms to control the content and control what gets put out. I think that it's coming to light more and more about the algorithms and how those are dangerous because not just advertising, propaganda spreads like wildfire on social media and people get sucked into these circles where it's just they keep seeing the same content, and it can be hateful, it can be divisive, it can be not true, it can just be not true. I follow a couple of people on my feeds that have wildly different political views than me, and sometimes the things that they'll post are just lies, like they're not real, but they believe it because it's a meme, and it's family members.
20 times.
And they've seen it 20 times in 20 different ways, but it's not real. And I think that it is the ethical and moral responsibility of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these things, all these platforms, to monitor that and to find ways to tag those things and flag those things and to put out their own content that shows that this isn't the truth.
Right.
Do you think, though, that they've made some steps in the right direction? I know Facebook has talked about adding the fact-checking things on different areas. Twitter has as well. I think I'm with you. I'm with you three, definitely, where these platforms need to police themselves, but then are you putting a lot of power to these organizations to decide what is right and wrong? And that's where the sustainability issue comes in. And I agree with you. I burn everything to the ground, start fresh. But the way to move forward, or even somebody had pointed out recently with the Louisville, Kentucky, where and it was a right-wing person who posted, called them out for their hypocrisy. They said they limit Trump's exposure because he tweeted something that incited violence. But then you look on the trending for Twitter, and burn Kentucky or burn Louisville was trending. So they're saying you need to police yourself, Twitter, and not allow those kinds of things to be posted there. So then when you start opening the gates on how to police, then you need to consistently police, and then it limits the freedom. So you have like that dichotomy, and I'm not arguing in favor of one way or another. It's just something that I don't know gets brought up enough in the conversation.
Just like there's laws and regulations on like TV ad commercials, whether you can't have cartoon characters sell cigarettes. You can't sell cigarettes on the internet or on TV anymore. I think that governing bodies have to hold these platforms accountable for what they're putting out into the public domain, and that there should be regulations in the same kind of vein. Like a political ad on TV has to say who paid for it, has to have these certain disclaimers on it. A pharmaceutical ad on TV has to have all the disclaimers on it at the end. And we're all used to that, but platforms don't have these things yet. And
interestingly, Facebook does. Especially with political ads. This is something that we're facing with one of our clients. Probably at least since the 2016 election, probably about a year old. And I'm not disagreeing with you. They should have been on this way before. They should have recognized it. But it's interesting to watch what Facebook does is they try to police themselves so that the governing bodies don't come in and say, you screwed up, now we're taking it, and now you have to be policed. So they implement a lot of restrictions on their ads, like for drugs or alcohol, and you can't advertise specific things. They could and they should do more. You're right, but I just wanted to say that.
Not just for our country, because Facebook's in a lot of other countries, and they're not doing anything at all because it's not as profitable to them. America's very profitable for them, but
I think there's a number of issues, right? And it's I think the tricky part is, and I think the part that we were trying to really get into, right, was this dichotomy between the rules and legislation around what you can advertise to children on TV versus what you can advertise to anyone on Facebook, right? Or YouTube. YouTube, I think, even more than Facebook, because little kids watch YouTube. So, Jonathan, do you know about anything else that they have put in place for that to limit down to children? Other than lying and saying you're older than you are.
There's no way to prevent that. You have your how you design your user experience to be and how your users actually use it, and there's that user word again.
Yeah.
I know that if you try and advertise anything for a bar, you have to make sure it's for 21 years and older. Like even if you're like Chili's Bar and Grill, it sees the word bar in there and says, "Are you advertising alcohol? You need to make sure that you're over 21." But then again, it's policed by that artificial intelligence. So if you say need help passing the bar exam, it's like, well, you need to be advertising to it. And sometimes it'll catch it, sometimes it'll flag it, and it gets weird. I know they put in a lot of place restrictions when the pandemic started really picking up, where you couldn't advertise for hand sanitizer or masks. But then they noticed that a lot of people were making homemade masks and selling them, and they were fine. They were effective. As long as you weren't claiming that they were the PPE or medical services, you have to say it's a homemade mask to place the ad out there. So they try and protect its users because, again, sustainable practices would be proven to be more profitable for them. I don't think they do it out of the goodness of their heart. They just know that if a user buys a mask that is advertised poorly, they get it, then they had a negative experience with Facebook, and then they're less inclined to engage with any of their ads. So obviously they have to police themselves to make sure that they're sustainable and profitable.
And we do know that there is content policing happening in these like giant data centers. I remember reading an article about one that's down in Florida, and it just sounds like, honestly, a horrible job.
Yeah.
I think you and I must have read the same one.
Oh, gosh. I had like nightmares about that job for weeks. I mean, somebody has to do it, right? That's the thing. Like, if we want the internet to have less graphic content and more appropriate content for people of all ages or whatever, somebody has to take it off.
Companies should fund those areas more, because a lot of times those jobs are horrible because people are working
Too many hours.
12-hour days, and they're just consuming all of this negative content. And so not only do they need to hire more people to do it, people of varying different backgrounds, but they also need to have mental health, like people, like therapists and things on staff to talk to their employees, because some of the things that they'll end up catching are violent, hateful, and damaging.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
There should be a limit on how long you can have that job.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of talking about, how can technology be better, right? And how can it serve like the population better? And so one of the guys in the show kind of early identified this, right? And he was one of the guys that worked on email for Google, for Gmail, right? And we're just like, I don't know why that shook me so hard, but I was like, wow, like he made Gmail? Like, so
Were you fangirling? Like, oh my gosh.
Let me tell you about those contacts. It's amazing. But one of the things he identified early on was that Gmail is addicting and email is addicting. And I think that was really the first social media tool that I got addicted to. And I never thought about it as a social media tool. I just thought about it as a productivity tool, which really kind of threw me for a loop. All these years later, I've been using email for like 20 years or something probably. But beyond that, beyond identifying early on that there's these ethical issues, now he's also created this Center for Humane Technology, right? Saying social media isn't a tool that's just waiting to be used. It has its own goals and it has its own means of pursuing them, right? And that touches back on that algorithm and all these behaviors that it's driving. So what have we each done that, has either that you've already done or that you're going to start doing as a result of what you've learned about social media apps through this show? Tasha?
Yeah. So while I was watching the show, literally I turned on screen time on my iPhone, which I've never done before, just to see because I don't feel like I'm addicted to social. I deleted Facebook from my phone. I use Instagram mostly for my photography business, quick plug, photography business. And I already, this has been 2 days, and I am flabbergasted. by how much I have my phone on, how often the screen is on. Like, sure, maybe I spend 3 hours on HAR, but like, do I need to be looking at homes for 3 hours every night, you know?
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I did immediately while I was watching it, just to kind of see, like, is this a truth for me as well? And if so, like, you can't start correcting a problem until you know what the problem is, you know? To say that social media is the problem, okay, but like which app is it? How long are you spending on it? What other apps are they? Like email, like WhatsApp, like these are social apps too.
Mm-hmm.
How often are you on Gmail? So that's I've now gone into the that phase of let's figure out the major issues so that I can work on those.
Yeah, I love it. What about you, T?
Yeah.
I actually just recently deleted the Instagram app just for a couple of days because I did find myself just on there so much. Anytime that I'm like going through like an anxious moment, I just instantly like go on Instagram and start scrolling. And I realized that I do this way too often. And on those 2 days that I was without it, I did feel that I was able to enjoy life a little bit more and like be in the conversations that I was in without thinking. I'm also really addicted to like how many people have seen my stories. And it's like, it's so strange. Like, who cares who saw your story? But I find myself like scrolling through like the people that are watching my stories. And that's just...
Yes, and I find myself refreshing my Instagram feed just so I can see if another person has watched my story. What kind of weird thing is that? Sorry, I didn't mean to derail. I identify with that. Agree. You're not alone.
What about you, 3?
I have deleted Facebook and Instagram off of my phone. I still have a hard time logging into Facebook on my phone through the web browser. But at least that like extra step is like slowing me down because I used to spend a lot of time on Facebook. I wasn't much of a content producer of my own. Like I didn't do a lot, but I was definitely like voyeuristic, would watch lots of everybody else's stuff. And I would use Facebook to like click on articles and things, but I would just spend too much time. And same way as you, T, whenever I have anxiety, and it's worse the more I use my screen, but I also want to use my screen whenever I have anxiety because I don't want to think, and it makes me not think about me. It makes me think about all the other horrible things in the world or wonderful things that other people are doing with their lives. So it looks so much better than mine. So I'm trying to lessen my consumption and focus more on what I could do with my time otherwise, like cross-stitching or reading a book or, something else.
Yeah, I like that. What about you, Jonathan?
So I think, 3, you and I are kindred spirits, especially when you said you didn't get a smartphone until you were 21. You said you were pressured by your boyfriend at the time. I was pressured by my girlfriend at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Who specifically said, don't think you're better than everyone else just because you don't have a smartphone. So
Yeah, that's basically the same thing to me. And I was like, fine, I'll get it, but I don't want it, and I'm not going to use it, and I'm not going to be addicted. And here I am.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, too. I didn't want to be addicted. But I've always limited my social media platforms. I am oddly probably a late adapter in the marketing bell curve to things, even though I probably should be an early adapter. But people have told me to get Instagram. I think I don't have that on my phone. I never log on to it. I said I have. They said it's just like Facebook except mostly pictures. And I said, that's great because I have a Facebook. And so why do I need to upgrade? And so on top of that, I don't have the app on my phone. I haven't for a while. And fortunately with my job as being Facebook such a big chunk of what I do, manage a bunch of other pages, so I get all of the notifications for those pages where it's so-and-so liked a post. And so I get on there and I'll have like 47 notifications, I just assume that they're not for me, so I don't even open them. So like it's almost like a weird thing where it's cured me of that notification addiction, where it like overloaded it, and so now I'm just numb to it. I don't. So I'll like friends or my girlfriend will say, "Oh, I tagged you in something." Didn't see it. It got buried. I'm also curious as to how you can get addicted to Gmail, because to me that sounds like being addicted to washing the dishes.
What, you, Mr. Workaholic, working on the weekends till like midnight? You would want to keep the same pod.
This is important work, okay? The dishes, I just like, those are fine.
No, I can see why it's addicting, because I always, like, I'm always on Gmail because I feel like I'm missing something. Like,
Yes,
I don't want to miss anything. So if I don't check, like, in a couple of hours, I feel like I'm behind in something, or like something happened without me knowing.
And I think people have also pressured us to be super fast with email, right? Where it's like you kind of want that almost like immediate response with email, and you get agitated if it's been 2 or 3 hours and no one's responded to your email. But that forces us to be checking our email all the time.
Yeah. I mean, email was originally designed to be something you get to. Like, I would check it once a day, answer it, check it. Like, an electronic form of mail wasn't supposed to be instant, and now people act like it's instant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren,
so
what have you done? I was about to ask, what have you done to change your social media habits? That's the social dilemma.
Yeah, I didn't answer. Okay, so definitely with email, for a while I took the Gmail app off my phone, because I was literally like checking it, closing it, checking it, closing it, checking it, talking to someone, checking it. Like, it was just ridiculous, like how many times I was in my email every day. So I took that off my phone until I felt like, it wasn't as big of a trigger anymore. And then as I started to realize the behaviors that were being triggered by algorithms and just social media tools, I started to realize that the notifications were becoming ridiculously disrupting. I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus on something for long enough to finish it. And I attributed that all to the notifications, right? Because it was just a constant interruption. And then, like Jonathan said, I mean, it's not just my notifications, it's all of our client notifications, and they're nonstop, right? So the only way that I could function and finish things was to turn off all my notifications, except for the ones that really matter, right? So for me, that's like our Slack channel. Like if something's happening in Slack, it's important, right? I need to know, but I don't need to know if I've gotten 5 more notifications in the past 5 seconds on Facebook, when it's probably for a client that 3 is going to handle. Like, it's fine. So I think those are probably the ways that I've kind of controlled my phone versus letting my apps control me. Talking to Tasha's and well, I guess T and 3's point about like stories and how many times people have watched them. I do the same thing on TikTok. Like I would just watch my TikToks over and over and over again, and it's just ridiculous. Like I'm watching my own content, and then and then there was this like audio that came up on TikTok, and it was like people are always ask me, why do you create all these TikToks? Nobody watches them. And I'm like, I watch them, okay? I watch my own TikTok. Nothing has spoken to my soul truer in the last week.
Wow.
I just had an idea
Yeah.
that I thought of earlier in our conversation, and I just want to throw it out there as a potential thing that I have not heard anybody else talk about, that platforms could be more ethical and morally responsible for the addictive nature of their platforms. What if, like in Netflix, when you watch 4 hours of shows, it says, like, are you still watching? What if after an hour of scrolling on a platform, you get a little notification that says, like, you've been on this platform for 1 hour.
So TikTok,
Why not look at something else?
Yeah,
It's time to go outside.
it'll stop you. So you can set
We'll do that.
a time limit for yourself within TikTok. So like one time I was like,
Oh.
I'm going to set it to an hour. That hour went by so fast. And then like your screen turns black and it's like, you've been on TikTok for an hour. Like, are you sure you still want to keep going? And like you have to click a couple buttons to get through to like keep scrolling again.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you're onto something, 3, and I'm not sure. Maybe I dreamt this or I'm being crazy, but at one point, if you were scrolling on Facebook enough, you could get to the bottom where it says you're all.
that was a long time ago. I don't think there's a bottom anymore.
There's no more
No,
bottom.
there is no bottom.
There
but
used to be a
I
bottom.
know it was at a point where I was on my phone that said you're all caught up. There's nothing new to show you, or like, do you want to look at old stuff or something? They gave you that weird option, but that's gone.
Instagram still does that. It does have the you're all caught up one. Like you've seen all the new things that of the people that you follow. But I don't know if there's an app already that exists like this that might like monitor screen time and where it says like, hey, you've been using your social media platform for blah, blah, blah. But it could be a thing that platforms could have like time limits on them or time suggestions. Like not limits, like I don't think we have to necessarily say that they have to control everything. It's just like maybe it would be a nice touch to show that they care about their users enough that they don't want them to be spending 6 hours looking at.
So here's a thought that we haven't talked about yet, but it just popped into my head. Is it the platform's responsibility or is it the parent's responsibility?
Oh, we're talking about kids?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
I
kids.
was like, can my parents step back in?
I was
and
like,
police that
can
use?
my parents come in and start taking my phone away from me? Because but if we're talking about kids, I feel like it is the parents' responsibility to a certain extent. But I do think that we live in a day and age that it would be very hard to keep your kids away from having a phone or a smartphone.
My goodness.
Yeah. I
Like,
think there's apps, but I'm not sure how they work.
the what?
I think there's apps. Like I think there's like this Life 365 or something that's like pretty horrible for like the kids' perspective, you know, of like their life is like controlled by their parents on their phone. But I don't know exactly how it works.
So
I mean, the designers that were in the show claim that they don't even let their own children use social media.
Because they know X.
Yeah, exactly.
But then even if you do place it on the parent's responsibility, you have the little girl in the Social Dilemma that smashes the thing and takes her phone away. Like my younger sister, she was staying here at my place for a little bit. And I was like, all right, here's all your chores to do. She didn't do them, so I took her laptop. She had a full-on breakdown. And then the next day I see her, she has a phone. I'm like, where'd you get a phone? And it's, my friends. Like, they just loaned me one of their old phones. And so it's like, it is a full-time job as a parent. I am not a parent, so I sympathize. I can't empathize. But it's a full-time job, and it's impossible. I mean, like, we talk about, kids nowadays and their phones. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, my parents took the keyboard out of the computer. But at that point, I was so addicted where I was using the mouse to edit the names of the icons on the desktop, and I would copy and paste the names of them and open up a WordPad, and I had Frankensteined strings of sentences and words. So I was still on Instant Messenger talking to people without a keyboard, just copying and pasting one letter at a time. So
can't you use a virtual keyboard? They exist.
This was a while back, 3.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying. I was like, did they have that back then? I don't know how to make it happen.
No.
I've seen it.
The keyboard was plugged into the back. This was probably 2004 or 3.
Yeah.
So around that time. So we can say the parents all we want, but is that even really realistic? Is even asking these companies to police themselves realistic?
I don't know. I don't know if that's realistic either. And I think also, how much can we expect parents to know about platforms that they didn't grow up with?
Right.
Well, I would say, I mean, you say you don't know if it's realistic to ask the companies, but like the companies are making billions and billions and billions of dollars in profit. So I don't have sympathy for them. And I feel like I think that they could do stuff and they're choosing not to because of capitalism and greed and money over people. And that's a thing, especially in a lot of Western cultures. It's money over people, and it doesn't matter if it affects the society as a whole to people who are making billions and billions of dollars.
You're right. I agree with you. I guess maybe I'm a little more less optimistic in thinking that there's a way to have these people beholden to that.
Yeah.
If we can hold them to the ethics. Go ahead, T.
I think that's when the government should step in and create these regulations and even tax or anything that can change, what we see.
Sure, tobacco companies said that it's the parents' responsibility to keep the cigarettes out of their kids' hands, and so we should still be able to use cartoon characters and fun flavors and things and be able to advertise on Sunday mornings cartoons.
That's a really, really good
their responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility.
And I think, we're kind of getting to the place in social media where we got to in the finance industry in like 2008. It's like, we can't ignore this anymore. Like, this is not the best system. There's a lot of holes, that bad people get in and create chaos and kill people and all sorts of negative results, right? And then there's also the psychological and behavioral impacts for people at all ages, right? Because it's not like people stopped signing up for social media. The ages just get younger and younger.
Well, older generations on social media are getting radicalized into things just as easily because it is still new to them, and they're almost like children in the fact that they believe everything that they see or read, and if they get into the wrong Facebook group or the wrong bubble of the internet, then they get inundated with all that, and they don't have the knowledge that, say, like people who grew up with it would necessarily have.
We're going to have a while to go before we can get or see those laws or legislation. Because, again, it was just recently when they were grilling Zuckerberg, and they don't know the difference between Twitter or Facebook or how any of that works.
Those questions were just painful to listen to. I mean,
random, question. Do y'all think that, flat earthers should be allowed to be on platforms?
I love this question so much.
Because they have become bigger and have grown a following on Facebook groups and social media and Reddit platforms and stuff. But technically, if you were to fact check them,
right,
they don't have facts.
They're
same
wrong.
with anti-vaxxers, anti-vaxxers and flat earthers. But flat earthers are funnier.
Yes. Flat earthers is a safe one.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, and I think it's important to remember that people are going to get pulled into that algorithm, and they're just going to continue to see that information from so many different people and so many different sources that they're just going to believe that it's true. Right. And it's it's comical to think about flat earthers, but there's lots of things we could replace that with, like Three said, that get really scary really quick.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we fix this? What can the five of us do to fix the social media problem for the world?
We're gonna fix the world.
I'm gonna take a depression now.
We have to destroy all of the Pete Campbell simulations that are inside the Social Dilemma. All of those little rooms of him looking sweaty and put together and whatever. Poor guy as an actor gets typecast so crazy. Just have to say, played the same character in Mad Men. Feel real bad for him. No, I don't know. I think that a big, we're talking globally, right? We're talking huge. We're talking outside the United States. I feel like all we can really do is know that what we're doing on our social media channels and with the clients that we manage, that we are thinking ethically about the way that we're posting and what we're posting. And also whenever we see things that we know should not be there, you can flag stuff, you can be active with what you see and individual policing in a way. That's my 2 cents. This is all very overwhelming. So I feel like if we could make our little circle better as us five, it would do something. You know, if every small boutique agency did that, maybe it would be a different place. Vote for me, President 2024. Okay.
I also think that it's important to have these type of conversations and to like check ourselves and just like, do I really need this in my life, and kind of regulate the amount of time that we're spending on social media. And also, yeah, like Tasha said, just approach, you know, what we create, the content that we create differently with a little bit more empathy and like considering like human emotions and like what it can do to people. I think that if we all did that, it can really make a big difference.
Yeah. I would say that I'm proud of Betsy Bash as a whole and the fact that we are having these conversations because, I mean, we're a social media marketing company, so we're talking about the ethics of advertising on social media, and that's what we do. But, like, we're talking about it and facing it as people and not just as a business, because if we were just thinking about this as a business, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And we would be counteracting and defending and saying the social dilemma is being stupid and that in reality this is all great and wonderful and everybody be on Facebook more and get on your Instagram more and like keep scrolling more, look at our ads. But we're not. And like I'm proud of us.
We advertise, just like, just looking at it.
Do that. It's kind of fun.
But I think that if there was more like companies that thought about things critically as people and less as just the bottom line, then we would be in a better place. And I'm proud to be a part of a company that's thinking of it as holistically as people and thinking of what we can do while still performing our jobs. And we do like helping small businesses. We do like helping small brands because that's an area that I think that social media is essential for them. I don't necessarily need to see an Amazon ad every 4 seconds, but I would like to see more like little Etsy ads or like more like those small companies or those small like people. And if I could just replace it with all just small people, then it's like, oh, I feel like at least I'm helping other human beings do something, you know?
Get their brand noticed, you know, and I think, and I appreciate that you're saying that. And I think that that's, you know, that's one of the differences that we have here is we're going to face these issues that, you know, could down the road put us out of business, but it's okay because we'll pivot, right? We'll make it work. But one of the things that always attracted me to the internet was this connection, right? I grew up overseas and I didn't even come to the United States until I was 7. So the like U.S. kind of American culture was very foreign to me, except for what I saw from my mom. Really, you know, my dad was working constantly and I was more absorbing other cultures, you know, in Southeast Asia and South America. And when the internet appeared and I was like 10-ish, I remember thinking like, oh my God, like I could find my friends from first grade. I could find my friends from second grade, right? Which people that grew up, you know, with their whole classmates, that wasn't a thing for them. But like that ingrained into my brain really early. And I wanted to make that happen for businesses, right? Connect you with the people that are interested in your product or are curious about what your podcast or curious about what you do. And so I think there is still a lot of good that can come out of social media. And my hope is that we can continue further down the path of good and stop the path of bad. You know, I don't think it's impossible. I think it's impossible to completely eradicate the bad side, but if we can slow it down, right?
Yeah.
That's all we can hope.
Yeah.
So any last thoughts on this episode of this documentary and what people should take home with them and you know, before they watch it, or if they, instead of watching it, one nugget that they should keep in their minds? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
All I think I was going to say is we talk a lot today about the laws and legislation and how things can be better. And I think we as a group seem to expect that the governing bodies step in and can legislate that. And I think the only way that that can happen is if we continue to keep an eye on progressive values in relation to internet activity and be an active and educated and informed voter. So get out and vote.
Yes.
Yes. That is everyone's takeaway from the social dilemma. Get out and vote.
Yeah.
Also, be aware of your own echo chambers.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I think it's funny that there's like, it's a common phrase to be like, oh, you're just not in my algorithm anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's a phrase, or that's a thing that exists. Like, I just don't see your posts anymore because you're not in my algorithm.
That's also a nice way to avoid your aunts that you've unfriended or unfollowed. Ugh, darn Facebook, I don't get to see your shitty minion memes. Ugh.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Anybody else? Anything to add besides vote?
I think that it was one point they made at the end is just how important it is to make your own choices. So if YouTube is recommending a video, but that don't choose that and choose a different one and change the algorithm so that it's really what you want to see. And also to expose yourself to opinions that don't agree with yours, or that isn't like exactly what you think, I think is important. But yeah, that's what I got out of it, just to take ownership of our decisions online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's that level of ownership, and then there's that level of caring for people that can't make those decisions yet, right? And we gotta figure out how we can take care of those people better. Right?
Mindfulness in general. Just being mindful of your time, being mindful of what you consume mentally and its effect on you, and think about how you feel after you spend time on platforms, and do your own fact checking as well. Just because a friend that you trusted posted a meme, check it before you go like, I can't believe that happened. Did it happen? I don't know. Check it.
And what's your favorite fact-checking website? 3.
Snopes. I've used that a lot. Often I will just Google whatever the meme is and then like go through different like articles and stuff about it. I've had to do it a lot because I have a stepmom who likes to just post things that are insane. And so then I just like find the facts and then I respond to her with those. She never responds back, so I don't know if she's reading it, but
In that echo chamber. All right, so we could talk about this forever. I know I certainly could, and I really appreciate everybody's inputs. I love these conversations, and if you enjoy them too, we've got lots more, and we've got more coming. We're going to be reformatting our podcast into more of a talk show, so stay tuned to see what that's going to look like. But for more information about us, you can go to betsybash.com. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn as Lauren E. Ramsey. All right. Anything else, ladies? And Jonathan?
All right. I think we're good.
We close out by like cueing theme song and like dance off screen then. Or...
Woo! It's pretty fun with us. It's pretty fun.